And you're on the air.
Good morning, Lee. It's Laurence with Nature's Purest.
My brother Laurence.
How are you?
Brother in arms, man. Hey, good, Laurence. We're fighting a good fight, aren't we?
We sure are.
Man, there's no two ways about it. I was just talking about you. I'm talking like 6-7 minutes ago. I was talking about you big time. That you are the last of your breed in the vitamin industry. You're it. You're the last of your breed, man. You're putting all the money, instead of having sales reps, promotional information, advertising, magazines, television, all this stuff, you're putting all of the money into the highest quality, the highest level of testing, high pressure liquid chromatography testing, vitamin supplementation, Nature's Purest. That's it. You're the last of your breed. We can't lose you. How many times have I told you we can't lose you, Laurence?
Well, I feel the same way about you,
man. And when I'm talking to you, just me and you, we're on the telephone talking. Do you not hear the emotion in my voice when I talk to you?
Oh, absolutely. If everyone was like you and Peggy, we wouldn't have this problem. So, but unfortunately, 99% of the independent health food store owners, what you would think as a consumer is their main focus, which is giving you the highest quality product at the best possible price. Unfortunately, that's not their focus, and as a result, it's just not a good fit for what we do. They're looking for something that's been heavily promoted and advertised. They're not concerned. I don't see them being overly concerned with how effective the formula is or how great of a value it is. What their primary concern is, are people coming in looking for it because it's popular, because there's been a tremendous amount of promotion and advertising. The formula and the value is an afterthought. It makes it a lot easier for them to do their job, but that's just the nature of the beast, I guess. We're doing things differently, and I'd like to talk about joint and pain factors this morning.
Yes.
What do you think about that?
This is your baby.
All right. I know we don't have a lot of time this morning, so I'll pick up the pace. You won't find a formula this good no matter where you look, from the quality of the ingredients to the formulation, to the production, to the packaging. Formula this complete with levels this high has never been made. And like all of our formulas, it's made right here in the USA. They're all in capsule form rather than tablets, which gives the consumer better solubility, better purity. Most of these products are made in tablet form, so the manufacturer can save money. They don't have to buy pharmaceutical-grade capsules, which are very expensive. But pharmaceutical-grade capsules dissolve so quickly that if you just put one on your tongue within 15 or 20 seconds, it will dissolve and you'll taste the powder. So that means it will get absorbed into your bloodstream, which is where it needs to be, as opposed to a compressed together, glued together, rock-hard tablet. There's no way of knowing if it's going to break down. There's currently no legislation enforcing that nutritional supplements break down. Drugs have to break down, but nutritional supplements don't have to break down in any certain amount of time. So there are a couple of disadvantages with tablets. They're hard to swallow, and they drop right to the stomach lining and can irritate it. And then there's the whole efficacy issue that we just talked about, which is a nutritional supplement can't do our body any good unless it gets goes into solution, gets absorbed into our bloodstream. That's the only way it can get into our cells. So if it doesn't break down in time, if it gets past the very beginning of the small intestine where the majority of nutrient absorption takes place, it doesn't matter if it breaks down in the lower GI tract or in the sewer system. It's past the point where it's going to do the body any good. So everything is in capsule form. It won't upset your stomach like a tablet. We use amber glass bottles because they're a better barrier to oxygen, light, moisture. All of our ingredients are non-irradiated. That's what I want for myself, and that's what we put in the products. They're all non-GMO. That's what I eat myself, or all non-GMO food items. So every ingredient in all of our formulas, I want to be able to take these myself, and I do take these myself. So they're non-GMO. And in many cases, that doubles the cost of the raw material. We've just reformulated all the multis, and we added mixed tocopherols and natural vitamin E, both in non-GMO, and they come from soy. and soy is a GMO crop. So just by telling the factory, the producer of the vitamin E in the mixed tocopherols that we want non-GMO vitamin E, literally doubled the cost of one of the most expensive vitamins in the formula. So most companies aren't going to do this. They don't want to double their cost. We also avoid the use of unnecessary additives. You'll notice that our formulas are primarily just the active ingredients on the label. You'll see either mag stearate, 0.5%, which you have to use so the capsules don't crack, and a tiny amount when needed of either white or brown rice in case the capsule's not completely full, and that's it. We don't use any other additives.
Can I interrupt 1 second?
Yeah.
And a mag stearate, vegetable cellulose, but also I want to make this really clear to people what you're talking about in the purity and the potency and not a bunch of fillers. An example to parallel what you're talking about, the curcumin bioperin is the brightest orange of any curcumin product on the market out there because it's not a bunch of fillers. That same mode of thought goes into the production of the joint formula you're talking about. Okay.
Correct. And it's also a good idea to take omega-3 fish oil with joint and pain products. I didn't combine the fish oil with this product because I wanted it to stay in a stable, dry powder. When something is in a liquid, things just tend to grow in it. So just the nature of a fish oil, it's not going to be as stable. So if you have a separate fish oil that you can try to keep fresh and take alongside with it, that's going to be beneficial. And here's the formula. These are probably going to sound familiar to people that are in pain or have joint issues, or maybe they're just being smart and knowing that in the future they probably will have trouble with their joints, and they're trying to prevent that from happening. But most people, I think, are suffering, and that's the reason that they know what these nutrients are. Here they go. These are the most popular and widely used nutrients for people that are having joint issues, and the potencies. 1,500, this is the amount that clinical research was done with, 1,500 milligrams of glucosamine sulfate, 1,200 milligrams of chondroitin sulfate, 1,000 milligrams of MSM, 100 milligrams of hyaluronic acid, 500 milligrams of boswellia, standardized to 65% boswellic acids, 500 milligrams of DL-phenylalanine, 250 milligrams of quercetin, 250 milligrams of bromelain, 2,400 GDU, and 250 milligrams of the curcumin that you just spoke about, that standardized to 95% curcuminoids, and that's why it's so brightly colored. Most companies don't want to use all-natural, standardized 95% curcuminoids because it's close to $200 a kilo. They can get something tantamount to a curry powder. It doesn't have that super fluorescent, bright yellow color, and then they oftentimes mix it with other things that are even less expensive, and that affects the color. So there are a couple of distinctions here. No one has ever put a formula like this together. These are all things that people take independently. There are people that literally will just take one of these things because they have joint problems and it helps them. So there are people that just take 100 milligrams of hyaluronic acid and that's it, or they're just taking MSM. So independently in these levels, these are very effective. And then the other half or so treat inflammation, which is generally the cause of the pain. So we're targeting, the beginning of the formula is targeting the building blocks that we need to build our joints and connective tissue, and then hyaluronic acid is to lubricate our joints, and then most of the rest of the nutrients are to address the inflammation issue. Glucosamine and chondroitin are the two most important nutrients for our joints and connective tissue. There have been literally thousands of research studies on both glucosamine and chondroitin. Glucosamine sulfate, that is, not HCl. Some companies use HCl, but the clinical research was done with glucosamine sulfate. We only use enzymatic HPLC-tested chondroitin sulfate, and that's a key distinction. In this industry, I wouldn't worry too much as a consumer about the quality or the efficacy of inexpensive ingredients. These producers don't have any great incentive to cheat people with inexpensive nutrients like glucosamine or MSM. These aren't expensive, and I don't think people are going to have to be too concerned. The big concern is when manufacturers start using these ultra-expensive ingredients. Chondroitin sulfate is extremely expensive, and I remember years ago they would sell quote-unquote chondroitin sulfate, but it really wasn't chondroitin sulfate. It was labeled as chondroitin sulfate, but it was actually just dry, ground bovine trachea powder, which is a collection of mixed mucopolysaccharides. there is one mucopolysaccharide that we're looking for. It's called chondroitin sulfate. But to isolate that one mucopolysaccharide is very expensive. It's so difficult to isolate chondroitin sulfate that a conventional HPLC test alone isn't accurate enough. So you could take trachea powder and use CE, which is capillary electrophoresis, and test it, and it'll say it's chondroitin sulfate, 90%, because it confuses all the mixed mucopolysaccharides and calls them all chondroitin sulfate. And people buy that. Countless metric tons of that has made it into these joint products, and they call it chondroitin sulfate. The next level up is HPLC. If you take that, quote-unquote, chondroitin sulfate that's tested by capillary electrophoresis, and you test it by HPLC, it's supposed to be 90%, it'll come out at 20% or 25%. So you would think HPLC would be good enough, 90%, but it isn't, because if you test the highest quality chondroitin sulfate by enzymatic HPLC and it comes out at 90%, you could test that exact same batch with regular HPLC. It might come out at 80 or 81. So there are companies that will stand by their chondroitin sulfate as HPLC tested, but they won't stand by it by enzymatic HPLC testing. That's a different ballgame. That's the highest level of testing, and that's all we use in all of our products that contain chondroitin sulfate. And just as we supplement calcium for our bones, it makes sense that we supplement the building blocks of our joints with glucosamine and chondroitin, and due to a lifetime of wear and tear. And the research, by the way, was done with 1,500 milligrams of glucosamine sulfate and 1,200 milligrams of chondroitin sulfate. So that's the amount that we put in the formula. The next nutrient is MSM, which is methylsulfonyl methane. It's a naturally occurring sulfur, and it's a metabolite of DMSO. And methylsulfonyl methane is a sulfur. It's a critical element on joints and connective tissue. And most pills are in tablet form, so the tablet, as I mentioned before, it's hard to swallow. It sits on the stomach lining, and it can irritate it. And there's no telling how quickly it will dissolve. It may not dissolve at all. So it's better to take these nutrients in a capsule form. Next is hyaluronic acid. Hyaluronic acid is also a mucopolysaccharide. Its function in the body, amongst other things, is to bind water, to lubricate movable parts in the body like joints and muscles. Hyaluronic acid is an important compound of articular cartilage. It coats our cells, and it's also a major component of skin, where it's involved in tissue repair. And here's an analogy, an automobile analogy. When heat and friction break down oil's viscosity in our cars, the oil becomes thinner and less able to protect the metal surfaces from excessive wear. And that's why we change our oil. Hyaluronic acid benefits our joints in the same way. And as we age, the viscosity of joint fluid lessens. So it's a good idea. Our body produces something like 7 grams a day. So this is going on all day, every day. Hyaluronic acid also helps to maintain normal joint cushioning. The following rest of the formula are the most widely used nutrients for inflammation fighting. 500 milligrams of boswellia, standardized to 65% boswellic acids. Clinical trials have demonstrated that boswellic acids have anti-inflammatory action similar to that of non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs. And unlike NSAIDs, long-term use of boswellia does not appear to lead to irritation or ulceration of the stomach. Extracts of boswellia are most commonly used for chronic inflammatory ailments. Next is, you mentioned, D-L-phenylalanine. It's also thought to be helpful in boosting mood, elevating chemicals in the brain, like dopamine. D-L-phenylalanine is thought to have effects on how the brain and the nervous system interpret and respond to pain. Next is quercetin. Quercetin is found in brightly colored plant-based foods. It's a flavonoid, and it has antioxidant and anti-inflammatory properties. The best natural source is red onions, and they contain about 10 milligrams of quercetin per ounce. So it would take about 25 ounces of red onions a day to deliver the same amount of quercetin that we're getting in one serving of joint and pain factors. And quercetin also has an antihistamine effect, so it's also taken for allergies. That's closely related to inflammation. Next is bromelain, and another key distinction, this is 2400 GDU. This is the strongest bromelain you can get. Oftentimes, if a company puts bromelain in a supplement, you'll notice it doesn't even say what it's standardized to, or it might say 100 GDU or 200 GDU. All that means is they bought 1 kilo of bromelain 2400 GDU, and they blended it with 23 kilos of maltodextrin, and they turned 1 kilo of bromelain 2400 GDU into 24 kilos of bromelain 100 GDU, and then they put that in the product. So it literally costs them a 24th of the money, and to the consumer, most consumers don't know the difference. They just see bromelain. Oh, I've heard that's good for your joints. And they don't know that 100 GDU is so toned down, it's cut so much that it isn't going to affect the body in any significant way. So, by the way, bromelain is a mixture of enzymes found in pineapples that digest protein. It's been heavily researched, and studies have shown that bromelain has excellent anti-inflammatory properties. It has a synergistic effect when taken with quercetin, making the benefits even stronger. And pineapple has been used for centuries in South and Central America to treat indigestion and reduce inflammation. It was first isolated from the pineapple in the late 1800s in Germany. It was approved to treat swelling and inflammation after surgery. Bromelain can be used to treat a number of conditions, but it's particularly effective in reducing inflammation from infection and injury. Bromelain may reduce swelling, bruising, healing time, and pain after surgery and physical injuries. And the last nutrient in the formula is curcumin. We did a whole show on it, so if somebody really wants detailed information, there's I believe it's at least 30 minutes of information just on curcumin alone. And all you have to do is go to YouTube and just type in Nature's Purest Curcumin, and you'll get a ton of information. But what makes our curcumin different than most curcumin is it's all natural. Many curcumin products are spiked with synthetic material so that it tests out, but it's inexpensive because it's synthetic, and they don't test to see if it's synthetic or natural. They just test to see if it's potent. So that's one common trick. Ours is all natural, standardized to 95% curcuminoids by HPLC. And also many, like we just talked about, many of these curcumin products have general labeling like turmeric or curcumin or proprietary blends. There's really no way to know how much of the curcuminoids you're getting, and that's why the color isn't as bright. And that covers the formula. Speed Racer.
That I tell you, it's the best all-around joint formula on the market in America. There's nothing out there like it. Absolutely nothing. I don't care what company, what formula. Even when I designed for another company, competing company, the one I designed for them does not compare to this formula. This is the best.
Yeah, and I've never paid any attention to how much anything costs when I create these formulas. And with that attitude, even I was hesitant to make this formula. I've wanted this just for my personal use for around 10 years. I've got really bad joint problems from sports injuries. And I thought of how many pills it was going to be and such high levels of so many costly ingredients. And I thought, I wonder if people are even going to buy this. But then I thought, I'm just going to make it for myself. And I eventually did, and I added it to the product line. So hopefully people will use it and enjoy it. But this is what, if you had all the research and you owned a vitamin company and you had bad joints and you wanted the best and you didn't care how many pills it was or how much it cost, this is what you would make.
This is what the scientist himself would take. Because that's what you are, brother. You straight up. Man, that formula is off the Richter scale. If people knew the potency, well, they do now. You just explained it to them. The potency, the efficacy in which you make this, oh, come on. This is the best joint formula. I see the ones on television, but you know, it really blew. I was always proud of my formulation that I did for a competing company, which I had the privilege of working with, and you blew me away, man. You beat me up on this formula. You beat me up. This is so superior.
Well, I'm sure you wanted to do something similar, and they probably wouldn't let you because they looked at the cost. You know, these ingredients are between $100 and $200 a kilo.
Yeah.
And when you tell a producer that you want 250 milligrams of quercetin per serving, or 250 milligrams of bromelain 2400 GDU, or 250 milligrams of curcumin, anyone that's bought these knows how expensive one bottle of that is. They're going to spend, $40 to $100 for a small bottle of one of those. There's no way around it. That's just how much it costs. So if somebody cobbles together a program and they get a bottle of glucosamine, chondroitin, MSM, and a bottle of hyaluronic acid, which is extremely expensive, and then a bottle of quercetin and curcumin, they buy all these bottles, how much money will they spend?
Laurence, you're the best, man. You're the best there is out there. The best. And
Thank you so much.
I know everybody. You're the best.
Well, so are you.
Hey.
So are you. So I really appreciate your support.
Thank you, Laurence. Love you, brother.
All right.
Thank you.
Have a great weekend.
Yes, sir. Man, straight up, he is the best. Good grief. You talk about a brain. Well, science in a bottle. Nature's Purest vitamins.